All right, recording has started.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to our January Data Reporting Managers Training. I am Carolyn Bostic, Team Lead for the Office of Special Education Data Reporting, all things data. And I hope that you guys enjoy this presentation this morning. And please do ask questions in the chat. When we're done with the presentation, we will open the floor for questions. Okay. Just a couple of updates and reminders. We know that there are some issues, or there were issues with the coding for indicator 12, the eligible initial baby net. Go ahead and continue to use this code. Enrich has ensured us that once they're done working behind the scenes, I know this is very scary, that they will correct this code on the back end. This is the correct code that you will need to use. The eligible initial code that is now working, that will clear the error away. That is the incorrect code. So please be sure to tell your folks to use the eligible initial baby net. I know that this is contradictory information. There's been a lot of back and forth about it, but I'm here this morning to tell you and to give you the official word that the correct code to use is eligible initial baby net. As you continue to complete your reports, if you're having issues or errors, it's really hard to decipher what is enriched and what's not enriched. So the best thing that I can tell you to do is always submit a ticket and have them to check into the problem and CC me on the ticket. If you CC me on the ticket, you don't have to forward it to me. I will get this a copy of the ticket when you submit it to Enrich. Because of all the issues with child count and the pre-checks for indicators 7, 11, and 12, I really don't know who still has outstanding issues with their reports. So if all of your issues have been resolved, for those 4 indicators, can you send me an email and let me know that all of the issues that you had? I think Horry County is one that I know for sure that still has some outstanding issues, and they were not able to do the pre-check for indicators 11 and 12. But if there are any others who still have outstanding issues, well, please let me know if you don't have any issues. Maybe that's a better way to say it, and all of your issues are resolved. Okay. Earlier in the week, I sent out an email with some incorrect information for Table 2 as it pertains to reporting your related services provider. Because of that misinformation, I am granting an automatic 1-week extension for the Table 2 submission report to give you an opportunity to go back and correct if you need to for the related services provider. And so your Table 2 report is now due January 28th. So there's just a couple of extra days for those who may need to go back in. And so for the correction for this report, I stated that you would take the number of related service providers and divide it by the number of your total number on your child count. That information is incorrect. It would assume that your staff works with all of the students equally and with the same amount of time. So you will need to go in and decipher the number of hours that each of those related services provider work with the students and divide it by the total number, hours in your school day, and then add them all together on the end to get a full-time equivalency account. And one of the things that was also brought to my attention, it is only reporting those students who may have counseling, social worker, nurse as a part of the IEP or ISP. So if the students does not have it as a part of their IEP, it should not be included on the report. And I know that may be an epiphany for some folks. It was for me. As many times as I'd done the report, I never thought about that. So if you have questions about that or need further clarification, we do plan to do a more thorough training on Table 2 for next year to get everyone on the same page and to have a clear starting point with the information. Kelvin?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kelvin Pompey, and I am the primary data analyst for Child Count. And I just wanted to give a couple of updates about the Child Count report. All certifications have been sent to districts, and the vast majority of you have already submitted your certifications, so thank you very much. For those of you who have not yet had your Child Count data certified, please submit those via email by next Friday, which is January 28th. Have those certifications sent to our Special Education Services email. Wanted to give an update on some of the issues that we've been having. I know that sometimes when we submit our child count reports to the SCDE, the Enrich system does not show any errors. And I know this is sort of unprecedented times with the Enrich system, but even after you see that you don't have any errors in the Enrich system, it may be a good idea to review your data, because we've seen a lot of errors that get past the Enrich system, which we'll work on trying to implement some more validations within that system. But even after you see that there are no errors, sometimes there are some substantive errors in the Enrich system, like a child may be 5 years of age and enrolled in kindergarten, and they don't have, in the child count submitted report, they don't have a school age LRE. And that's basically been the biggest issue that we've been seeing. This has happened a lot for students who may have 2 LRE codes. Their LRE or their IEP transcends to basically 2 years. So at the beginning of the IEP, they may be early childhood, but then they enroll in kindergarten, which should start the school age LRE since they're 5 years of age. And a lot of times we're seeing that the preschool LRE is still showing, or the early childhood LRE. And so one of the things that we would like for you guys to start doing is, for one, ensure that when a child is 5 years of age and they enrolled in kindergarten in the middle of their IEP, make sure that the start date of that school age LRE is the first date that they enroll in kindergarten instead of being their 6th birth date. And that should help with the issues that we're having with the LRE. Most of the errors that we've found in the child count report have been already submitted and corrected on our end. There are a couple more errors that you may receive an email about related to your child count report. Please just bear with us as we make those corrections, and then we will all be good to go. That's all I have, Carolyn.
Now we're going to give you a little bit of information about the pre-check results. And so I'm going to turn this over to Andrea.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? Just want to go in to speak a little on the pre-check submissions for Indicator 7. We had about 4,145 students that we had submitted for pre-check. If you received the return pre-check and you had text highlighted in red, that's just an indication that that student is showing in 2 separate districts. If you have already put in the entry and exit, that's fine. There's nothing you need to do. However, if you are a district that would show a student highlighted in red, even if the student has left, you want to make sure you have that entry and exit information in there so that at the state level, we'll be able to determine which student to remove. You would also probably see cells highlighted in yellow. Those highlighted cells, you would show blank. So that means that you're missing information there. And so you want to make sure that you input the missing information. It may be entry, it may be exit, It may be a progress, yes or no, that you need to enter. So you're going to make sure that you enter that. And you also may see a notation that would read exit codes required in final report. That means that that student must have an exit, entry and exit at the in the final report. Out of the 4,145 students we received for the pre-check, there was like 1,278 students that would need an exit code at the final submission. So next you want to, if you saw an include in report, that means that the student that you have input your information in for the entry and exit, it's fine, and you would want to make sure that you include those students in your final report. Impossible. The impossible would derive from, for an example, you may have had a student who was a 5 at entry, a 7 at exit, and you placed a no in the progress, which would result in this error returning. And so you want to make sure that you correct that. Another reason that it may show impossible is if you had like an exit but no entry, it will also show it impossible. And then you should also show some highlighted cells to complete. The progress is just self-explanatory, meaning that you did not input progress, a yes or no answer to the progress question. And we had very little of those. We only had like 18 of those. But the highest number that we had was the exit codes required. So you want to make sure that you go back and check your pre-check sheet to ensure that you make those corrections. Next slide. And just some indicator 7 pre-check reminders that all exit codes would be should be completed and done at the time that the 5K IEP is written. This is done regardless of age or disability. For initial placement of students, if you initially place a student who's 5 in kindergarten, just a reminder, no codes is required for that student. If they're initially placed in 5 and in kindergarten, you don't have to complete that information for that student. Just as a reminder, and I have been getting some emails concerning this, we still have that distinct population of students who are currently 5 and in kindergarten, and we listen to the districts during the first of the year, the school year, stating that it was a burden to try to exit all of those students at the beginning of the school year, and so we have extended that time for you to ensure that those students are exited. So they should be exited no later than June 30th. But moving forward, this population of students should have an exit completed on or before June 30th, because the new year starts on July 1st. Another reminder, IEPs are written across multiple school years. Our recommendation is for you to complete that exit codes 3 weeks before the end of the school year, when students have IEPs that span across the multiple school years. So the students should have like 2 LRE codes, so that one for the remainder of the year, they will have the LRE code for that. And then the second one is for the start of the new school year. And I think I've had some questions on that. So yes, you would have 2 LRE codes. So any other questions or concerns that you may have with your indicator 7, just please reach out to me if you have any additional questions, and I'll be more than happy to address those. And just make sure that you remember that there's also that COAS tutor that you can visit. And I think I indicated that in the last presentation, but if you don't have that, I can kindly send that to you via email if you choose for me to do that. I think that's it for me. So Yolanda.
Just 1 second before Yolanda gets started. We have quite a few chats coming through. We want to stop and address those questions as they're coming through, just to keep it aligned. So
okay.
I've answered a couple of them already. I think the next one, it says, when will the pre-checks be entered into ADT? Pre-checks were entered into ADT as of Friday last week. So if you log into your ADT system, you should see your pre-checked information there. And we are requesting that all corrections be made in the system prior to the next pre-check. That will help our efforts. That will definitely help your efforts. So, and also remind the folks in your districts, to your teachers, give them this information so that they can make the corrections as they're going, as completing the IEPs as well. Will there be another pre-check? Yes, February 18th is our next pre-check for indicators 7, 11, and 12. I think Oconee says theirs is not in ADT. So if you guys would check that, Yolanda, Andrea. What else we have here? Georgetown Cavaliers. Okay, we have a question from Kay. If a full K student that is 5-year-old is placed in special education services at the end of the school year, as an entry COSEF, is an entry COSEF exit needed? So if a student turns 5 and is placed in special education upon entry, no. Since our age is now 5 years old in kinder, you do not have to complete an exit or entry COSEF for that child if initial placement is kindergarten. Kelvin got that. Okay. I think we're good. Yolanda, go ahead.
All right. Good morning. My name is Yolanda Singletary, and I will be speaking with you about indicators 11 and 12 pre-checks. If you have pink highlights in your spreadsheet, that indicates that that student is a duplicate. If the child appears twice in your district, if you could check to see if you can remove one of those entries. And if it appears once, if you would please put in the comments whether or not the student should be reported with your district. And any highlights in yellow indicate that you're missing information. We, in indicator 12, you will see more of the yellow highlights where there was either a missing IEP start date or a missing SPED exit date. And for any parental delays or parental consents that you have, if you would please include your dates of contact and the reasons for the delays. It will assist in me going ahead and removing your penalties prior to me forwarding the information back to you. And the same for the team meeting dates. If that information is there and there is not a comment, it can assist me in determining whether or not a penalty can be removed. And for all overdue evaluations, we're asking that you please remember to include your comments and narratives about why the evaluation was overdue. That information also assists us in determining whether or not we can remove a penalty. And anytime you see LEA confirm, that means that your district will receive a penalty for that evaluation. And if you feel that the penalty should be removed, you can insert some comments, and we will also take a look at that to determine whether or not we can remove that penalty. And as far as COVID for this school year, evaluations that were completed from March 20th, 2020 through March 11th, 2021 are eligible for a COVID exemption if the following is included in the comments. Date the district opened and closed due to COVID, a detailed narrative that states how and why COVID prevented the evaluation from being completed, to include portions of the evaluation that were delayed due to COVID, and include dates for your parental contacts and delays.
Okay, so now it's back to me. Okay, so indicator 14, which is actually due, your submission is actually due February 18th, which is next month. I will start this session by saying that the option for opt-in is no longer an option. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. So indicator 14 post-school outcomes provides a list of students that have exited the previous school year to basically find out what they're doing 1 year after graduation. It is lag year data, so it's the student that exited in June of 2021. This is a submission by all districts via Enrich, and as I stated earlier, it's due the third Friday in February, which is the 18th. Okay, and it counts the percent. It's the percent of youth who are no longer in secondary education and had an IEP at the time they left school. Measure A is looking at students who are or were enrolled in higher ed within 1 year of leaving high school. Measurement B is a combination of students who are enrolled in higher ed and were considered competitively employed 1 year within leaving high school. And measurement C is kind of the catch-all. If they were in school, post-secondary outcomes, if they had any type of training, competitively employed. So measurement C is kind of our catch-all. If whatever they were doing 1 year after leaving high school, the only thing that it does not take into account is those students who were doing absolutely nothing. So indicator 14 for your existing students, the population of students who have exited during the previous year, and they will, and it is a part of our annual performance review that includes students that graduated with a high school diploma, received a certificate, and we do now get to include our GED students as a certificate. In years past, or once upon a time, they were considered students who received a GED a dropout, but I have received confirmation from OSEP's our Technical Assistance Center, that those students can be coded as receiving a certificate instead of being coded as a dropout. Our students who reach maximum age, and those students who dropped out of school at the age of 17 and did not return the subsequent year. Your deceased students are not included in this report. They are excluded. I just want to talk a little bit about the survey questions. As I stated earlier, because the determinations, the layout or the layout for the determinations is changing, and directors will hear more about that on our call on the 26th. And because of the new layout, it's just, it wouldn't be beneficial because you would only be able to use the bonus points in this area for indicator 14. And so an executive decision was made not to allow districts to do the opt-ins anymore. However, if you did do your opt-in, or if you completed the opt-in as a part of last year's reporting for this year, we will honor those districts and those points, and will be tagged on to the end or the total of your determinations. So there, we revamped the survey questions last school year, and so there, I want to think maybe 7 or 8 questions on the survey. And so question one is a multi-part question, and it's asking for those students who was enrolled in higher education within 1 year of leaving high school. So questions 1A and B aligns or feeds into this first question. If you were military, so survey questions 2 and number 3, if you said yes, and 4 yes, aligns into students being competitively employed. 1C is students who were in some sort of school, but not necessarily a higher ed or 2 or 4 year institution, but received some sort of training, whether it be on the job training. I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but nonetheless, questions 1C, D, and E aligns with question 3, some sort of education or training after leaving high school. And as I stated earlier, question 4 that the survey questions align into, survey questions 3, if you say 3 yes, and 4 no, those questions actually falls into number 4. So I know there were some issues last year with indicator 14 and the outcome on the survey results on the end. And so I assured you last year that we would have it correct this year, and this is the correct, so that you'll know where those questions aligns and how those percentages are derived. Okay, and as I stated, question 1 automatically aligns with measurement A, which means any student that went to any type of 2-year or 4-year institution. Questions 1 and 2 feeds into measurement B for competitively employed, and measurement C is a combination of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. As I stated earlier, because that option to opt in and to receive the bonus points has gone away, things that you could possibly do to let your students know that the survey is coming down the pikes, just so that they don't think that it's one of the telemarketers, the nuisance telemarketers call. You could put out flyers, and I do think we have a flyer that we could share with everyone. You could do some sort of social media blast, and the option to send postcard reminder to those students that that a survey call is coming down the pikes. We are hoping this year all of the surveys will go to, all the students list will go to the survey vendors this year, and so we're just thinking about possible things that you could do to remind your students that the calls are coming or should be coming down the pikes. We can also share that survey link with you if you want to put it out, or just whatever you feel you might need to do to help your students. We're open to those options and suggestions, but the option to opt in and call the families and get those success stories kind of becomes obsolete with this next go round. A couple of reminders, as I stated earlier, the next monthly data reporting meeting is February 17th at 10 a.m. It is the same link. And the next pre-checks for indicators 7, 11, and 12 will be February 18th, and the next after that is April 15th. And Albert, if you could unmute everyone, we're going to open the floor for anyone that has questions, or if there's questions in the chat.
Carolyn, I just want to go in to say I've had a couple of districts actually inquire via chat about their pre-check being in the ADT system. I just want to remind you that if you did not submit by that deadline date for the pre-check, then you would not get any results back, because I'm finding that I didn't see the district in the report when we pulled it down. I think my last pull down was down at the end of December, I think it was.
And Andrea, you may want to go back, and this applies to Yolanda as well. We did tell the districts that if they were having issues and they submitted afterwards, that we would take that into consideration. So if there's someone who submitted after who was having issues, and we can verify that there was a ticket from support from them, if they submitted, we can go ahead and honor those pre-checks for them.
All right, attendees have been unmuted, so you can go ahead and ask your questions now.
Do we have any additional chat questions in the chat that has not been answered, that have not been answered?
Yes, there's a question. I answered one of Shannon O'Neill's questions, but I'll throw this one to you. And so she was saying, or asking, do we give students a school age IEP? we don't give them a school age IEP until they are actually enrolled in kindergarten, not in pre-K in anticipation of moving to kindergarten. Is that correct?
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the LREs and the school age. We have inquired with Enrich about streamlining this so to prevent these type of issues or errors. And because of the way that the school traditionally in past years reporting, we knew that 3 to 5 was streamlined. Those were early childhood, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But because of the shift of 5K to the school age population, the LRE code for early childhood only lives in the early childhood table. So the only thing that they could do in their system to allow districts or to allow the teachers and access to a school age LRE was to embed the school age LRE into the early childhood table. Hence, that's why you're able to see both early childhood and school age LREs in the early childhood table, because that's where the 5-year-old information lies. Their system is not designed to allow 5-year-olds into the school age table. So that's why we're having the issues with the LRE codes. So for those students who have, who may start the school year with a 4K IEP and after child count date, or if birthday IEPs after the child count date, but before the end of the school year, you do that IEP, and the start of next school year will be 5K. You add a second LRE into the table, into the system, but you have to add that second LRE in from the early childhood table by selecting one of the appropriate school age LRE that the student will have at the start of the next school year. Shannon, does that help clarify that?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't expected to initiate a school age IEP while the student was still in pre-K.
No,
okay.
No. You have the 2 LREs in place, one to accommodate the current year, the pre-K LRE, and the second LRE is for the start of the next school year, because the student will be starting the next school year as a kindergarten, which is a school age, which should have a school age LRE. And so that's what rectifies the incorrect LRE code, is the student having that second LRE code in place at the start of the next school year.
Carolyn, it's Yolanda. We have some districts who have questions about COVID and whether or not we can reconsider the March 11th, 2021, I guess, resolution. I guess that's something we'll have to take to Becky.
Right.
And follow up with the response.
Correct. That directive came directly from Director Davis. So when we have our next meeting with her, we will ask her to reconsider that. In the interim, I would strongly recommend that you inform your teachers that they need to put those explanations into the system, document attempts, meeting cancellations, just by saying that, the parent requested, or, just randomly, this may be a poor example, but it's the best I have. The parent asked to reschedule the meeting, and that's all it says. Well, that's going to be a penalty, because that's not enough information for us to make a decision. You want to include multiple attempts, you want to include dates, and times if you have it. But, once again, that information has to get down to the person that's completing the IEPs, which is going to make your job a whole lot easier. Any additional questions?
I think I see a few, and I want to go back. concerning indicator 7. We have one, if I have a student who is 5 and in kindergarten that are being initially placed, I don't need to enter an entry and exit even if they are highlighted on the pre-check.
Andrew, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that entry was completed for that student when they entered the district. And you didn't have to, but so you can indicate an exit date, or you can just actually denote that to me so that I can make that correction at the state level. So you can just like put in the return note to me, or just can email me now so that I can go ahead and put that in my notes for the final report.
So just to clarify, Andrea, you're stating that the student had an entry or exit and they were 5 years old and you didn't have enough information to make a determination. So you highlighted for them to give you more information.
Well, yeah, it was missing. The student apparently had, well, I'm sorry, Lindsay, you may want to clarify because I just want to make sure that I'm assuming that they had an entry and no exit, or neither.
They don't have either because they were just placed as a 5-year-old that's in kindergarten. So I'm just confirming that I wouldn't need to, like, if for some reason they're highlighted on the pre-check, I still wouldn't need to put in an entry and exit because they're 5 and in kindergarten. I would just need to let you know they're 5 and in kindergarten.
Right, so the student is shown on your report?
I haven't gone through all of them. I'm just trying to confirm because there's a lot of yellow and I don't have as much yellow on the working copy that I keep. So before I try to combine them, I just was asking to get confirmation as I started to go through them.
Yeah, so yes, you can notify me. And Carolyn, if it's not started by the school district, or just the process of them being on the report and they shouldn't be?
So, and the thing with COSEF is it's a little tricky because there was no way to notate a lot of the validations that we're having to go through within the system. So every student comes up on the report if they meet the trigger, right? Which is 3 years old. And so we're having to go back and do some extra steps. And so if you have students that are 5 when they were initially placed, go ahead and let Andrea know that, and she'll make a notation of it in her final copy so that as we go through the pre-check, she doesn't have to keep asking you the same questions over and over, because those students will appear as a potential error on all of the pre-checks. And so as we transition through this, and I know this has been overwhelming for everyone with Enrich and all the back and forth and really not knowing what type of issues we're going to get, it is forcing us to have to do some extra things manually. And so, like I said, if you have students that are on your report that were initially placed as kinder and they don't have that in there, the other thing is it does not indicator 7 does not allow us a comment field to be able to capture those things. So if you guys can advocate for a comment field for indicator 7, that would be great. It would help you, and it would also help us to transition through these codes and reasons. I hope I answered the question and I wasn't just babbling.
Also, while we're on indicator 7, I think we had some other ones, but since we're on indicator 7, go ahead and grab this question. Carolyn Bush stated that they have 2 students that transferred to a parentally placed school, and they are placed on an ISP, which ISP would still need COSEF. So on the pre-check, an error is displaying saying that the student needs a coast. Can the district complete an exit coast on the student? If not, how do we correct the error?
And Andrew, you may want to double check that. I remember seeing on one of the reports where the parentally placed private school students were excluded from it. So double check to see, to make sure that the parentally placed private school kids are actually excluded from indicator 7. I know it's excluded from a couple of indicators. I don't remember off the top if this is one or not. But in the event that it's not, or if you cannot complete the outcome, just provide that information to Andrea. So once again, she doesn't continue to ask you guys those questions, and we can remove those kids from the final report.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any additional questions?
This question is related to the COAST as well. For the students who have the 2 LRE codes where the kindergarten ignites the school age LRE, they're asking if a student has to repeat pre-K and they don't go on to 5K. We know that we can correct the IEP, but what about the exit codes?
Well, they would not, because they kindergarten is the trigger for the exit codes. So they would remain, I guess, receiving services under COAST until the kindergarten IEP is written, regardless of grade and age. Regardless of the age.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions?
Yes, this is related to Table 2. As IEPs are being developed now for the 2022-2023 school year, wouldn't we need to have information now regarding nurse, counselor, social worker services on IEPs?
So, and I don't know, but I vaguely remember a related services report being out on the hub somewhere. Don't quote me on that just yet. Let me find out to make sure. But with that related services provider report, I think that would be the report that you would need to download from the hub to see which students or who's providing related services to those students within your district, and that would help to guide you. We will definitely cover Table 2 prior to the end of the year, but because Table 2 is reflective as of the staff that's providing services on the child count date, we do have some time to get that guidance updated and out to you before then.
This is another question. It says, regarding Table 2, should school psychologists be included only if they are listed as a related service on an IEP?
Well, school psychologists are a different beast because basically they are responsible for evaluations. So theirs is going to be a little different. Theirs is different because they do the evaluations, the initial placement. Their roles are more in depth than just those that are providing services as a related services. So you have to look at the school psychologist a little differently.
I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Okay.
However, there's been a hand raised by Beverly Pilkey.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she wants to speak.
I don't have any questions. You've answered those earlier.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. Well, if there are no additional questions, I'm going to hang on for just a few more minutes and give you guys about 15 minutes back in your day. Thank you. Thank you. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to assist you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Carolyn.
Yes.
There